The fluorescent lights of SeaTac Airport's Terminal B flickered once, then held steady, casting everything in that familiar airport pallor: tired, transient, forgettable. Jordan Rivers stood at the counter of Gate 12, watching the agent's fingers dance across the keyboard with practiced indifference. The screen reflected in her glasses rows of seat assignments and passenger codes scrolling past like stock tickers. Jordan's boarding pass appeared on his phone screen. Seat 2A, first class. $840 he'd paid with his personal Amex, not the corporate black card sitting in his desk drawer back in San Francisco. The agent glanced at the name, Rivers, Jordan M., and her expression didn't change. No flicker of recognition, no double take, just another passenger. Just another Thursday morning. Perfect. He stepped aside, slinging his canvas messenger bag higher on his shoulder. The strap was frayed at the edges, held together by 3 years of use, and one emergency sewing job Sophie had insisted on doing herself with purple thread. His 11-year-old daughter meant well. The hoodie he wore, charcoal gray, University of Chicago across the chest in faded letters, had seen better days too. The cuffs were stretched. A small bleach stain marked the left pocket from a laundry mishap 2 years back. The kind of imperfection that made clothes real instead of presentable. Jordan pulled the hood up as he walked toward the gate seating area, finding an empty row near the window. Outside, a Skyward Airlines 737 sat at the neighboring gate, ground crew moving around it like ants at a picnic. His airline. 6 months ago, he'd signed the papers that made him majority owner of a struggling carrier, bleeding $47 million a quarter. The board had been skeptical, the press had been cynical, Wall Street had shrugged, but Jordan hadn't bought Skyward to flip it for profit or strip it for parts. He'd bought it because his wife Rachel used to say the best test of character was how you treated people who could do nothing for you. Flight attendants, gate agents, baggage handlers. The invisible army that kept aviation running while passengers complained about legroom and peanuts. Rachel had been dead 3 years. Breast cancer, stage 4, diagnosed too late. She'd spent her last 6 months teaching Sophie how to braid her own hair and teaching Jordan how to stay humble when money tried to make you forget where you came from. The hoodie had been her last birthday gift to him, purchased during a weekend trip to Chicago where they'd walked through his old foster care neighborhood, and she'd held his hand at every corner where memory turned sharp. Never forget you're humble, Jordan. That's your superpower. He pulled out his tablet, screen cracked in the upper right corner from when Sophie had dropped it reaching for the cereal, and opened his email. 312 unread messages. Most could wait. One couldn't. From Elizabeth Hart, his CFO and the only executive who'd followed him from his software days into this aviation gamble. Subject line: "We have a problem." Jordan opened it. The email was clinical, numbers forward, exactly like Elizabeth. Customer complaints up 340% year over year. Staff morale surveys returning scores in the 34th percentile. Anonymous Glassdoor reviews using words like toxic, dismissive, discriminatory. But the kicker sat in the final paragraph, highlighted in yellow. Mystery investor accumulating shares. Shell company traced to Cayman registration. Pattern analysis suggests Fontaine Global. They're at 22%. If they hit 30%, they can force shareholder action. Possibly a hostile takeover attempt. Jordan's jaw tightened. Fontaine Global. Derek Fontaine's vulture capital firm, known for buying distressed airlines, firing half the staff, selling the landing slots and planes, then bankrupting whatever remained. He'd done it to 3 regional carriers in the past 5 years. Skyward would be his biggest prize yet. Jordan typed a response with his thumbs. Monitor closely. Don't tip our hand. I'm doing field research today. We'll brief you tonight. Field research. That's what he called these undercover flights. The board thought he was paranoid. Elizabeth thought he was hands-on. Sophie thought he was avoiding grief by staying busy. Maybe they were all right. But today, he needed to see what his employees did when they thought nobody important was watching. How they treated the passenger in the hoodie versus the passenger in the suit. Whether the complaints in those surveys were isolated incidents or symptoms of something rotten in the culture. The gate area filled slowly. Business travelers in their uniform of blazers and tote bags. A family with 2 kids arguing over an iPad. An elderly couple holding hands, probably flying to visit grandchildren. Jordan watched them all with the detached interest of someone conducting an experiment. Then the energy at the gate shifted. A man's voice, sharp and demanding, cut through the ambient noise. Jordan looked up. The man was maybe late 40s, white, hair gelled into aggressive perfection. His suit was Brioni. Jordan recognized the cut and the price tag, somewhere north of $8,000. The watch on his wrist caught the light. Patek Philippe, probably the Nautilus model, 85 grand if it was real. Shoes polished to a mirror shine, briefcase that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He was jabbing his finger at the gate agent, the same young woman who'd checked Jordan in 5 minutes ago. Her face had gone pale. "I requested the upgrade 2 weeks ago," the man said, loud enough that everyone in the gate area could hear. His voice carried that particular frequency of entitlement, the kind that came from years of getting what you wanted by making people uncomfortable. "I specifically asked for 2A first class, window seat. I fly this route 3 times a month. Do you know how much I spend with this airline?" The gate agent's voice trembled. "Sir, I understand, but seat 2A is already occupied. I can offer you 2B, which is, I don't want 2B. I want 2A. I'm Platinum Elite. 10 years Platinum Elite. Do you understand what that means?" Jordan closed his tablet. This was going to be interesting. The gate agent typed frantically, eyes flicking between her screen and the man's red face. "Sir, our system shows 2A is assigned to another passenger who's already checked in. Policy states we can't—" "I don't care about policy. I care about what I was promised. Fix it. Now." The agent's fingers froze over the keyboard. Jordan watched her internal calculation play out in real time. Powerful, angry man in expensive suit versus policy and procedure. Which one would win? Her fingers started moving again. Override codes, manager authorization bypass, seat reassignment. Jordan's phone buzzed. New boarding pass. Seat assignment changed to 2A. He looked at the agent. She wouldn't meet anyone's eyes now, face burning with shame and relief that the screaming had stopped. The man in the Brioni suit smiled, triumphant, and moved to the premium boarding lane. So that's how it worked. Scream loud enough, dress well enough, and the rules bent. Jordan made a mental note. This wasn't isolated. This was cultural. Boarding began 20 minutes later. Jordan waited, watching the premium lane empty first. The man in the suit, his boarding pass had been visible for just a moment, name printed across the top, Fontaine Derrick, strutted down the jet bridge like he owned it. Jordan felt a cold trickle of recognition. Derrick Fontaine. Not just any hostile investor, the hostile investor. The man trying to buy enough Skyward shares to force Jordan out and strip the company for parts. And now they were about to share a row in first class. The universe had a sense of humor. Jordan waited until general boarding, then joined the line. He shuffled forward with everyone else, scanning his phone at the gate. The agent barely looked at him. Just another passenger. Just another unremarkable face. The jet bridge smelled like industrial cleaner and recycled air. Jordan's sneakers squeaked on the non-slip flooring. Ahead, he could see into the plane's cabin through the open door. Soft lighting, beige leather seats, the promise of legroom and free drinks. He stepped aboard. The cabin was pristine in that freshly cleaned between flights way. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, checking overhead bins, greeting passengers with practiced smiles. Jordan turned left into first class. Row 1. Row 2. Seat 2A sat empty by the window, exactly as he'd booked it. Jordan stowed his bag in the overhead compartment, no need to arrange it neatly, nobody here cared, and dropped into the seat. The leather was cool against his back. He buckled the seatbelt, pulled the hood up over his head, and closed his eyes. Finally. Just 90 minutes in the air, then back home to San Francisco. Pizza with Sophie, movie marathon. She'd pick something animated that would make him cry, and she'd pretend not to notice. The thought made him smile. Then a voice shattered the moment. "Excuse me." Jordan kept his eyes closed, hoping whoever it was would go away. "Excuse me, hello? Are you deaf?" The voice was nasal, impatient, familiar. Jordan sighed internally and slid his headphones off, opening one eye. Derek Fontaine stood in the aisle, boarding pass clutched in his manicured hand, face already flushed with irritation. Up close, Jordan could see the details Wealth bought. Custom tailoring that made the suit drape perfectly. Teeth too white to be natural. Skin that glowed with the sheen of expensive moisturizer and spa treatments. Jordan blinked. "Can I help you?" Derek's expression twisted into something between disbelief and disgust. "You're in my seat." Jordan's voice came out raspy from not talking for the past hour. "I don't think so. I have 2A. Booked it weeks ago." Derek waved his boarding pass like it was a court summons. 2A, right here, see? Move it." Jordan pulled out his phone and tapped the screen, bringing up his own boarding pass. "I have 2A too. Looks like there's been a double booking." Derek's laugh was short and sharp, the kind that said he thought Jordan was an idiot. He turned toward the galley and snapped his fingers. Actually, snapped them. The sound cracked through the cabin like a whip. "Stewardess, we have a problem here." A flight attendant hurried over. Her name tag read, Rebecca Torres. 14 years with the airline, if Jordan remembered the personnel files correctly. 41 years old. Performance reviews always rated as meets expectations, but with a notes section that ran longer than most. Complaints about attitude, issues with passengers of color, tendency to prioritize high-status flyers over airline policy. The complaints had been flagged, investigated, dismissed. Sales targets met. No action taken. Jordan had read her file twice. Now he was about to see if the pattern held in person. Rebecca took one look at Derek, the suit, the watch, the platinum medallion luggage tag, and then looked at Jordan. Her eyes swept over the hoodie, the scuffed Nike sneakers, the cracked tablet resting on his lap. The calculation was instant and visible. Her face barely moved, but Jordan saw it happen. The sorting, the classification, the judgment. "What seems to be the problem, Mr. Fontaine?" Her voice dripped warmth when she addressed Derek. Professional honey, the kind flight attendants deployed to soothe premium passengers. Derek gestured at Jordan like he was pointing out a stain on the upholstery. "This individual is in my seat. I specifically requested 2A. I'm a diamond member, platinum elite for 10 consecutive years. I want him gone. Rebecca turned to Jordan. The honey evaporated. Her voice went cold, the tone reserved for unruly children and people who tried to sneak into first class with economy tickets. Sir, may I see your boarding pass, please? Jordan held up his phone. The screen showed his name, his confirmation code, seat 2A, clearly marked. It says 2A, Jordan said calmly. There's clearly a double booking error, but I was here first and I'm already seated. Rebecca pursed her lips. The expression reminded Jordan of a teacher who'd already decided you were lying before you opened your mouth. Sir, system glitches happen occasionally, but Mr. Fontaine is one of our most loyal customers, and quite frankly, she tapped on her own device, making a show of checking something. Your ticket class shows some kind of promotional code. Is that correct? It wasn't correct. Jordan's ticket was coded OP, Owner Priority, a designation so rare most staff had never encountered it. The system literally marked him as the airline's owner. But Rebecca had either misread it, ignored it, or decided that a man in a hoodie couldn't possibly be anyone important enough to override a diamond member's tantrum. It's a full fare ticket, Jordan said, his patience thinning like ice in spring. I'm not moving. I suggest you find Mr. Fontaine another seat. 2B is open. The cabin went silent. Other first-class passengers were peeking over their headrests now, sensing drama. Nobody called a flight attendant by their first name without the courtesy of Miss or Ms. It was a small power play, stripping away the professional distance, forcing equality into an interaction designed to be hierarchical. Rebecca's face flushed pink, the color climbing her neck. Sir, that's not how this works. I need you to... Derek leaned in, invading Jordan's personal space. His cologne was aggressive, something with too much cedar and not enough subtlety. Listen to me, buddy. I have a merger to close in San Francisco, a $40 million deal that closes tomorrow morning. I need this seat to work. You look like you're going to sleep off a hangover. Get your ass up and go back to economy where you belong before I have you thrown off this plane. Jordan looked at Derek, really looked at him, saw the sneer that came from a lifetime of getting his way, saw the entitlement etched into every line of his face, saw the casual cruelty of someone who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. Then Jordan looked at Rebecca, saw the same calculation, the same bias, the same willingness to sacrifice fairness for the comfort of not making a scene with someone powerful. This was it. This was the test. Not a surprise inspection or a mystery shopper evaluation. Just a moment where his employees had to choose between doing the right thing and doing the easy thing. They were failing. If you move me, Jordan said, his voice dropping an octave, you will regret it. That's a promise. Rebecca straightened her spine. Her hand went to her hip, a gesture of dominance she probably used on drunk passengers and unruly teenagers. Is that a threat, sir? Because threatening a crew member is a federal offense. It's not a threat, Jordan said. The words came out quiet, final, heavy with certainty. It's a business forecast. The tension crystallized. Jordan could feel every eye in first class on them now. A woman in 2B, late 50s, white, expensive jewelry, probably flying to visit family, lowered her sunglasses to watch. A businessman in 4A had his phone out, either recording or ready to record. Rebecca made her decision. Jordan watched it happen in real time. Her shoulders squared. Her voice went official, the tone she'd used to announce a delay or a gate change. I'm going to ask you one last time. Gather your belongings and vacate the seat. I can find you a spot in premium economy, row 24. That's extremely generous considering your attitude. Row 24. Premium economy. Not even first class. After he'd paid full price for 2A. Jordan chuckled, low and dark. I don't think so. Derek slammed his hand on the overhead bin. The crack echoed through the cabin. This is ridiculous! Why are we still talking to him? He's clearly squatting. Call the captain. Call the police. Get him off. Rebecca grabbed her handset and pressed the call button. Captain, we have a level 2 disturbance in first class. Passenger in 2A refusing to vacate a duplicate seat assignment and making threatening statements to crew, requesting immediate removal. She hung up and looked at Jordan with a smile that had nothing to do with customer service and everything to do with winning. There, it's done. You had your chance. Jordan didn't move. He simply unlocked his tablet and opened his email app. His fingers moved across the cracked screen, composing a message to the board of directors, CCing the HR director and the VP of operations at JFK. Subject line: Immediate restructuring required. He didn't send it yet. He wanted to see how far they'd go, how deep the rot had spread, whether this was one bad employee or a symptom of systemic failure. 2 minutes crawled by. The cabin held its collective breath. Then the heavy thud of boots echoed down the jet bridge. 2 Port Authority police officers boarded the plane. They wore the standard uniform, dark blue, badges gleaming, radio chatter crackling from their shoulders. Behind them came a third man in an ill-fitting blazer, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the cabin's air conditioning. Carlos Rodriguez, gate manager, 47 years old, Air Force veteran, 9 years with Skyward. Jordan had reviewed his file too. Good performance marks, occasional notation about being too deferential to management and conflict averse. A man who followed orders, kept his head down, didn't make waves. What's going on here? Carlos asked, his voice tight with the kind of stress that came from being called to solve a problem you didn't understand. Derek pointed at Jordan with a manicured finger. He's the problem. Trespassing in my seat. I'm a Diamond Elite member. I fly this airline 3 times a month minimum. I want him gone, and I want him gone now. Carlos looked at Jordan, took in the hoodie, the sneakers, the canvas bag, the cracked tablet. Jordan watched the same calculation happen. Suit versus hoodie. Status versus appearance. Power versus poverty. Sir, I need to see your boarding pass, Carlos said, trying for diplomatic but already leaning toward Derek's version of events. Jordan held up his phone again. Same boarding pass, same seat assignment, same confirmation code. Carlos squinted at the screen, saw the name. Rivers, Jordan M. The name meant nothing to him. It sounded like a brand of silver cutlery or maybe a bank. Not like a person. Certainly not like the person sitting in a hoodie in front of him. Sir, we have a conflict here. Mr. Fontaine is a Diamond Partner member. Our policy states that in the event of a double booking, priority goes to the status member. I'm going to have to ask you to deplane. We can rebook you on the morning flight tomorrow, first class, with a voucher for your trouble. Jordan's voice stayed level. I'm not rebooking, and I'm not moving. You're making a mistake, Carlos. A career-ending mistake. Rebecca's voice went shrill. He's threatening staff again. Officers, get him off this plane. The 2 police officers stepped forward. The taller one, broad shoulders, kind face, wedding ring on his left hand, reached out with a practiced gesture, not aggressive but firm. Sir, don't make this difficult. You need to leave the aircraft. You can file a complaint with corporate later, but right now you're delaying the flight and creating a disturbance. Let's go. Jordan looked at the officer, saw a good man doing his job based on lies the crew had fed him, saw someone who'd been given incomplete information and asked to make a judgment call. Not the enemy, just another person caught in the machinery of injustice, running on assumptions and bias. Fine, Jordan said. He unbuckled his seatbelt. The click sounded too loud in the silent cabin, like a judge's gavel or a gun being cocked. He stood up slowly, deliberately. At 6'3", he towered over Derek Fontaine. Up close, Derek shrank back slightly, some primal part of his brain recognizing size and strength, even as his ego insisted on dominance. Jordan reached into the overhead bin and pulled down his messenger bag. The purple thread Sophie had used to repair the strap caught the light. He slung it over his shoulder and looked at Rebecca. "You wanted me to leave?" Jordan's voice was quiet, controlled, dangerous in its calm. "So I'm leaving. But since I'm leaving, this plane isn't going anywhere." Derek sneered, emboldened now that Jordan was standing in the aisle, flanked by officers, clearly beaten. Yeah, keep talking, loser." He slipped past Jordan and dropped into seat 2A, like a king claiming a throne. Stretched his arms, grinned. Finally, some class in this cabin. Rebecca beamed at him. "Can I get you some champagne, Mr. Fontaine? On the house, for your trouble." Derek settled into the leather. "I'd love some." Jordan walked down the aisle. Every head turned. 300 passengers watching him be escorted off the plane. He saw pity in some eyes, amusement in others, discomfort in a few. The woman in 2B, the one with the expensive jewelry, met his gaze, and her expression said she knew this was wrong, but wasn't going to say anything. Nobody ever did. The walk felt endless. Past economy, past the galley, past the cockpit where the pilots were probably being briefed on the disturbance. Jordan kept his back straight, his pace steady. Humiliation burned in his chest, but he converted it into something colder, harder. Fuel for what came next. He stepped off the plane into the jet bridge. The cold air hit him like a slap after the cabin's warmth. Behind him, the door remained open, light spilling out, the murmur of passengers settling in for departure. Carlos followed him out, nervous sweat visible now. "Sir, I'm sorry it had to go this way. If you come to the customer service desk, I can try to get you a voucher for a meal. Maybe expedite the rebooking." Jordan stopped walking, turned to face Carlos. Didn't yell, didn't raise his voice, just pulled out his phone, not the personal iPhone, but the second phone, the one in his other pocket. The executive phone with the black case and the encryption that made NSA-level security look casual. "You don't need to get me a voucher, Carlos," Jordan said. His tone was conversational, almost friendly. "You need to start updating your resume." Carlos blinked. "Excuse me?" Jordan held the phone to his ear. 1 ring. 2. A woman's voice answered, crisp and efficient. "Elizabeth Hart?" "Hello, Elizabeth. It's Jordan." He kept his eyes on Carlos as he spoke. Watched the color start to drain from the manager's face as understanding began to dawn. "Yes, I'm at SeaTac. I need you to execute Protocol Black immediately." "Sir, are you certain? Protocol Black means ground flight 447. Yes, right now. Pull the departure slot. And get the Director of Human Resources on a conference call. I'm invoking the majority shareholder clause." Carlos's face went from pink to white so fast it looked like a magic trick. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Wait," Carlos stammered. "Majority shareholder? You mean Sterling Horizon? The holding company that owns—" Jordan lowered the phone slightly, just enough to make eye contact. "I am Jordan Rivers. I own this airline. I own 58% of Skyward Airlines, and nobody is flying anywhere until I clean house." The silence on the jet bridge was absolute. Even the ambient noise from the terminal seemed to fade. Carlos stood frozen, hand halfway to his mouth, processing information his brain refused to accept. The two police officers, still standing in the jet bridge doorway, looked at each other with expressions that said they knew they'd just stepped in something way above their pay grade. Jordan put the phone back to his ear. "Elizabeth, still there? Good. I want termination packets prepared for the gate crew. Rebecca Torres, flight attendant. Carlos Rodriguez, gate manager. I want documentation of every complaint filed against Torres in the past year. And I want Tom Webb, he's the station director here, running down this jet bridge in the next 90 seconds, or he's fired too." Elizabeth's voice came through, calm and professional as always. "Understood, Mr. Rivers. Protocol Black is executing now. Tower's been notified. Flight 447's departure slot is revoked. Legal is standing by. And I'm texting Tom right now. He's apparently in a meeting, but he's not in a meeting anymore. He's running." Jordan ended the call and turned his attention back to Carlos. The man looked like he was going to be sick. His face had gone beyond pale into a grayish tone that suggested cardiovascular distress. "Sir," Carlos whispered, "I didn't know. The manifest just said Rivers. We get hundreds of passengers named Rivers. And with the hoodie and the—" "It wasn't a glitch, Carlos," Jordan cut him off. The words came out surgical, precise, designed to cut. It was a test of your culture, a test of your staff's bias, a test of whether my employees would do the right thing when they thought nobody important was watching. You failed." Inside the aircraft, something changed. The lights flickered once, then died. The soft hum of the auxiliary power unit spooled down into silence. Passengers' voices rose in confused murmurs. Jordan could hear Rebecca's voice, sharp with panic. "What's happening? Why did we lose power?" The captain's voice crackled over the PA system, audible even from the jet bridge. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reynolds. We've received an administrative hold from corporate headquarters. Code Black. We're ordered to shut down all systems and remain at the gate. Please stay seated while we determine what's happening." Derek Fontaine's voice, loud and incredulous. "Code Black? What the hell is Code Black? Is this a joke?" Jordan allowed himself a small smile. Code Black. The nuclear option. Reserved for situations where the majority shareholder needed to ground operations immediately for safety, legal, or executive reasons. He'd implemented it 6 months ago over the objections of 3 board members who thought it gave him too much power. Right now, it was the most beautiful piece of policy he'd ever written. Behind him, the sound of running footsteps echoed through the terminal. A man in a navy suit appeared at the end of the jet bridge, tie askew, phone in one hand, face red from sprinting. Tom Webb, station director, 52 years old, 28 years in aviation. Good operational record, but, Jordan had noted in his file, a tendency to defer to status and appearance over substance. Tom ran down the jet bridge, past startled passengers waiting at the gate, past the 2 police officers, straight to Jordan. He stopped, caught his breath, and for a moment, just stared. "Mr. Rivers," Tom gasped. "I am so sorry. I was in a budget meeting. I didn't know you were traveling today. If I had known—" "If you had known, you would have rolled out the red carpet," Jordan said. The observation carried no anger, just cold, factual assessment. "And that's the problem, Tom. You treat people in suits like gods, and everyone else like obstacles. Your staff just profiled me, humiliated me, and kicked me off my own aircraft based on nothing but assumptions about my clothes and my skin." Tom's face cycled through several colors. He looked at Carlos, who was staring at his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. "Who did this? Who authorized the removal?" Carlos's voice came out barely above a whisper. Rebecca Torres and me, sir. Jordan held up a hand. Save it. I don't want apologies. I want accountability. And I want to teach a lesson this airline will never forget. He looked at the closed aircraft door. Through the small window, he could see movement inside. Rebecca pacing in the galley. Passengers standing up, looking confused. Derek Fontaine gesturing angrily at his phone, probably trying to call someone who could fix whatever was happening. "Tom," Jordan said. "Open the door." Tom hesitated. "Sir, what are you planning to—" "Open the door. I'm getting back on, but not as a passenger." The station director looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to suggest calling legal or consulting the operations manual or literally anything other than whatever Jordan was about to do. But he was looking at the majority shareholder, the man who could fire him with a phone call, the man who'd just grounded an entire flight with 3 words. Tom walked to the door and pressed the intercom. "Captain Reynolds, this is Tom Webb, station director. I'm opening the aircraft door. There's been a situation. Stand by." The door mechanism engaged with a hydraulic hiss. Cool air from the jet bridge flooded into the warm cabin. Passengers near the door looked up, expecting maintenance or maybe the captain stepping out to inspect something. Instead, Jordan Rivers walked in. The transformation was instant and visible. He wasn't the tired passenger in a hoodie anymore. His shoulders were back. His head was high. The messenger bag hung from his shoulder like a briefcase. His stride carried the kind of confidence that came from ownership, from power, from the absolute certainty that every person on this plane answered to him, whether they knew it or not. Behind him, Tom Webb stepped aside like a butler. The 2 police officers flanked Jordan now. Their body language shifted from escort the troublemaker to protect the VIP. And behind them, a woman Jordan had never met but whose reputation preceded her. Diane Patterson, HR Director for the Pacific Northwest region, tablet in hand, face set in professional neutrality. Rebecca Torres stood in the galley. A plastic cup slipped from her fingers and clattered on the floor. Her face went through the same color change Carlos's had, pink to white in seconds. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Jordan walked past her without a word, didn't even glance in her direction, just moved up the aisle into first class with the measured pace of someone who owned not just the airline, but the moment itself. The cabin fell silent. Not the uncomfortable silence from before, but something deeper, anticipatory, electric. Jordan stopped next to row 2, looked down. Dare Fontaine sat in 2A, champagne glass halfway to his lips, frozen in the act of taking a sip. He looked up at Jordan with an expression of pure disbelief mixed with the first edge of fear. "You," Derek said. The word came out strangled. "What the? How did you get back on?" "Rebecca! Rebecca! Security!" Rebecca didn't move. She stood in the galley, hands shaking, eyes wide. Jordan's voice cut through the cabin, quiet but carrying to every seat. "My name is Jordan Rivers." Derek's champagne glass tilted, spilling a drop on his $8,000 suit. He didn't notice. "I know who you are, Derek," Jordan continued, his tone conversational, almost friendly. "You're the CEO of Fontaine Global Logistics. You're currently attempting to acquire Western Cascade Shipping for $200 million. Your stock price is hovering at $52 a share, but you're over-leveraged by about $200 million in margin debt. You applied for a loan from Rivers Capital 3 weeks ago, $180 million at prime plus 2. Derek's face had gone slack. How do you... Jordan's voice dropped lower, quieter, more dangerous. Because I own the bank you applied to. I own the logistics company you're trying to buy. And 6 months ago, he turned slowly to look at Rebecca, who'd gone even paler if that was possible. I bought this airline. The revelation hit the cabin like a physical shock wave. Gasps rippled through first class. Phones came out not to put away, but to record. Every passenger suddenly understanding they were witnessing something that would be dissected on social media within the hour. Rebecca's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes went so wide, Jordan could see white all around the iris. The blood drained from her face fast enough that he wondered if she might actually faint right there in the galley. Dursat sat frozen in 2A, champagne glass still tilted at that precarious angle, liquid threatening to spill. His mouth worked but produced no sound. The expression on his face cycled through disbelief, confusion, fear, and finally landed on something like rage trying to mask panic. Jordan let the silence stretch. Let the weight of the words settle. Let every person in that cabin understand that power didn't announce itself with fanfare in press releases. Sometimes it whispered, and sometimes it walked onto a plane in a hoodie and scuffed sneakers and reminded people that assumptions were expensive. The woman in 2B, Sarah Bennett, Jordan had noted her name from the manifest earlier, had her phone up, recording. Her finger moved to her screen. Jordan caught the motion. She was already uploading, already sharing. The internet would have this moment before the plane even pushed back from the gate, if it pushed back at all. Jordan walked to the flight attendant station at the front of the cabin. Rebecca stood paralyzed near the cockpit door, still too shocked to move. Jordan reached past her and picked up the PA handset. The weight felt familiar. He'd done public speaking to thousands, done earnings calls with analysts who picked apart every word, done TED Talks about foster care reform and the myth of meritocracy. This felt different, more personal, more necessary. He pressed the button. His voice boomed through the aircraft, reaching every seat from first class to the last row of economy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jordan Rivers speaking. Silence. Complete and total. Even the babies in economy seemed to sense something important was happening. I am the Chief Executive Officer and majority owner of Skyward Airlines. The murmur started in the back, rolling forward like a wave. Jordan could hear the confusion, the disbelief, the gradual acceptance as passengers pulled up Google on their phones and saw his face staring back from Forbes covers and Bloomberg profiles. I apologize for the delay and the loss of cabin power. We had a personnel issue that required immediate attention. You see, approximately 15 minutes ago, I was removed from this aircraft by security. The murmur grew louder. Jordan kept his voice steady, letting each word land with precision. I was removed because a flight attendant and a gate manager decided that a black man in a hoodie couldn't possibly belong in first class. They looked at my clothes, they looked at my skin, and they made a choice. They chose to believe a man in an expensive suit over a paying customer with a valid ticket. They chose assumptions over evidence. They chose bias over fairness. A sound erupted from the back of the plane, angry voices, shouts of support, a scattering of applause that grew into something sustained. Jordan waited for it to die down. I believe in accountability. I believe that when people fail to meet basic standards of human decency, there must be consequences. So we're going to make some changes, right now, in front of all of you. He set the handset down and turned to Rebecca. She stood trembling, tears already streaming down her face. Her mascara ran in black rivers. Her hands clutched at her uniform skirt like she could hold on to her job through sheer physical grip. "Rebecca Torres?" Jordan's voice dropped back to normal volume, but still carried through the silent cabin. "You've been with Skyward Airlines for 14 years. Rebecca's voice came out as a sob. "Mr. Rivers, please. I have 2 children. I didn't know it was you." "That's exactly the point." The words came out sharp enough to cut. "If I'd been wearing a suit, you would have checked the manifest twice. If I'd been white, you would have called the gate to verify. But you saw a black man in a hoodie, and you treated me like garbage because you thought I was powerless. You don't serve customers, Rebecca. You serve your own prejudices." He gestured to Diane Patterson, who stepped forward with her tablet. Her face remained professionally neutral, but Jordan had known her long enough to see the tightness around her eyes. She was angry too. Not at being called to the airport on short notice, but at what she'd learned in the past 10 minutes about the staff she was responsible for managing. "Ms. Torres," Diane's voice was crisp, corporate, final. "You are hereby suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending full investigation into discriminatory conduct, violation of company ethics policy, and gross negligence in passenger services. You will be escorted from the aircraft. All company property must be surrendered. You will receive formal notice of termination within 72 hours, pending HR review. But based on the documented complaints in your file and the witnessed events today, termination is the expected outcome." Rebecca's legs buckled. She caught herself on the galley counter. No, please. This isn't fair. I was following protocol. Mr. Fontaine is Platinum Elite. The policy says..." "The policy says nothing about removing paying passengers based on their appearance." Jordan's voice cut through her protests like ice. "The policy says nothing about assuming someone is using a promotional code without verification. The policy says nothing about prioritizing status over human dignity." He looked past Rebecca to where Derek still sat, champagne glass now set aside, face cycling through emotions too fast to track. And Mr. Fontaine was never the problem. You were. Rebecca opened her mouth to say something else, but Diane was already stepping forward with a box. "Your personal items from your locker will be shipped to your address on file. Please collect your bag from the crew area and deplane immediately." Rebecca stood there for another few seconds, as if standing still could somehow reverse what was happening. Then the reality crashed down. Her career was over. 14 years gone, blacklisted from aviation, bills piling up, kids asking questions she couldn't answer. She grabbed her purse from beneath the galley counter and ran. Actually ran down the aisle, sobbing so hard she could barely see, pushing past passengers who pulled their legs in to let her pass. The sound of her crying echoed through the cabin until she disappeared into economy and finally out the door. The cabin stayed silent, waiting. Jordan turned his attention to the man in 2A. Derek Fontaine had recovered some composure. His face had settled into a mask of forced calm, the expression of someone used to talking his way out of trouble. He stood up, smoothing his suit jacket, manufacturing a smile that probably worked in boardrooms. "Jordan, can I call you Jordan? Mr. Rivers. Look." Derek's voice took on a conciliatory tone, smooth as aged bourbon. "This got out of hand. Travel stress, you know how it is. We're both businessmen. We both understand the pressures. I may have been a bit short-tempered, but surely we can work this out. I'm actually a huge supporter of what you're doing with Skyward. The turnaround strategy is impressive. You called me a beggar." Jordan's voice stayed flat, factual. "You said I picked through trash." You told me to go back to economy where I belong. You put your hands on me. That's assault, Derek. Derek's smile faltered. I was joking. You can't seriously. We're both adults here. Little misunderstanding. Heat of the moment. Surely you've said things in anger you didn't mean. Jordan stepped closer. Not threatening, just closing the distance until they were eye to eye. I don't find it funny. And I don't misunderstand assault. Derek's facade cracked. The smile disappeared. Look, I apologize, okay? I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry. Now can we please move on? I have a crucial meeting in San Francisco. Millions of dollars are riding on... Tom, Jordan spoke over Derek's head to the station director hovering near the door. What's Mr. Fontaine's ticket status? Tom pulled out his tablet, fingers shaking slightly. Platinum Elite member, flexible first-class fare, fully refundable. Refund it. Derek's face went purple. What? You can't... And ban him from Skyward Airlines. Permanent restriction, no fly list. Upload his photo to every gate system, every check-in counter, every booking platform we operate. Derek exploded. You can't do that! I have rights! I'm a Diamond member! Platinum Elite for 10 years. You can't just ban someone because they hurt your feelings. Jordan's voice didn't rise to match Derek's volume. If anything, it got quieter, forcing Derek to stop yelling to hear the response. I'm not banning you for hurting my feelings. I'm banning you for assault, for verbal abuse of staff, for creating a hostile environment. And because I can. I'm the owner. This is my airline. I make the rules. Derek's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Jordan thought he might actually throw a punch, consequences be damned. The two police officers shifted weight, reading the same signals. And Derek? Jordan leaned in slightly. Rivers Capital Holdings owns equity positions in 4 major hotel chains, 3 rental car companies, and 2 private jet operators. I'm sending notification to all of them within the hour. Your accounts will be suspended across all properties. By the time you find another way to San Francisco, you'll discover that bridges burn faster than you can run. Derek's face went from purple to white. That's vindictive. That's abuse of power. I'll sue. You'll do nothing. Jordan's voice carried absolute certainty. Because if you pursue legal action, I'll countersue for assault. We have 300 witnesses, multiple video recordings, and a legal team that bills more per hour than your company makes in profit per day. Derek looked around the cabin, searching for support, for someone to object to this injustice. He found only passengers watching with expressions ranging from satisfaction to barely concealed glee. Nobody was coming to his rescue. Nobody cared about his meeting, or his millions, or his decade of Platinum Elite status. Oh, and one more thing. Jordan's voice took on a tone of casual observation, like mentioning the weather. That loan application for $180 million? The one you need to close the Western Cascade acquisition? Consider it denied, effective immediately. Rivers Capital will not be extending credit to Fontaine Global. Derek's knees actually buckled. He grabbed the seat back to steady himself. That loan is critical. The acquisition closes in 8 days. Without that funding, we forfeit the $20 million deposit. The whole deal collapses. Our stock will probably drop about 30% when the market opens tomorrow, and investors realize you can't close the deal, Jordan finished. Yes, I'm aware. That's what happens when you treat people like they're beneath you. Sometimes those people turn out to own the things you need. Derek's face went through another color change, settling on a sickly gray. He looked at Jordan with something approaching genuine fear now. This will destroy my company. You're destroying my company over a seat? I'm holding you accountable for your actions. There's a difference. Derek grabbed his briefcase from under the seat, hands shaking so badly the latches rattled. He tried to salvage some dignity, straightening to his full height, adjusting his tie. This airline is finished anyway. Your customer satisfaction scores are in the toilet. You're bleeding cash. I give you 6 months before you're bankrupt, and when that happens, I'll be there to buy the assets for pennies on the dollar. Jordan smiled. Actually smiled. You'll be there? With what money? The company you're about to bankrupt? The credit you're about to lose? The reputation you're about to destroy? Derek, in 6 months, you'll be lucky if you can afford a bus ticket, much less an airline. Derek pushed past Jordan, past Tom, past the police officers. He made it 3 steps before Jordan's voice stopped him. Officers, please escort Mr. Fontaine from the airport property. If he attempts to rebook on any airline from this terminal, notify me immediately. Derek spun around, face contorted with rage. You're insane. You're a petty, vindictive, power-mad lunatic. This is why people like you shouldn't have money. You don't know how to use it. The 2 officers moved to flank Derek. The taller one spoke quietly. Sir, let's go. Don't make this harder. Derek jerked his arm away from the officer's touch. Don't touch me. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? The officer's expression didn't change. Sir, you're currently being escorted off private property at the owner's request. You can walk, or we can assist you. Your choice. Derek's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment. Then he turned and stormed down the aisle, shouldering past passengers, his briefcase banging against seatbacks. The cabin watched him go in silence. When the aircraft door closed behind him, first class erupted in applause. Genuine, sustained applause that spread to economy as word filtered back about what had just happened. Jordan raised a hand and the noise died down. He turned to Carlos, who'd been standing near the door the entire time, watching his career implode in real time. Carlos Rodriguez. Carlos flinched like he'd been struck. Yes, sir. You're not fired. The relief that washed over Carlos's face was so intense, it was almost painful to watch. Oh, thank God. Thank you, Mr. Rivers. Thank you. I'll never... You're demoted, Jordan continued, and the relief evaporated. You failed to verify information. You failed to question authority. You failed to exercise independent judgment. Those are leadership failures. So you're no longer in leadership. Carlos's voice came out barely above a whisper. Sir, I have a wife, 3 kids. The mortgage. You'll keep your salary, Jordan cut him off. You'll report to the baggage handling facility tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. You're going to spend 6 months loading suitcases, learning what it's like to be the person nobody sees, nobody thanks, nobody respects. You're going to understand the weight of the work, literal weight, that keeps this airline running while managers sit in offices making assumptions. Carlos nodded rapidly, tears streaming down his face. Yes, sir. Anything. Thank you. In 6 months, if you prove you've learned something, if you show me you understand that leadership is service, not status, I'll consider promoting you to operations supervisor. You'll fix the systems that made you fail today. You'll rewrite the protocols that prioritize appearance over fairness. Carlos's voice cracked. I won't let you down, sir. I swear. See that you don't. Jordan turned back to the cabin. Captain Reynolds stood in the cockpit doorway now, a silver-haired man in his late 50s who'd probably seen everything aviation could throw at him, until today. Captain Reynolds, the captain straightened. Mr. Rivers. How long until we can get a replacement flight attendant? Reynolds checked his watch. Reserve crew is on call. 30 minutes, maybe 40. Make it happen. And, Captain, when we're airborne, I want the bar open. Free drinks for every passenger, economy included. Full premium service for everyone. We're apologizing for this delay, and we're doing it right. Reynolds actually smiled. Yes, sir. I'll make the announcement. Jordan finally lowered himself into seat 2A. The leather was still warm from Derek's body heat. He pulled his messenger bag from the overhead bin and set it on his lap, feeling the weight of Sophie's purple thread repair work, feeling the connection to the life waiting for him in San Francisco. Tom Webb cleared his throat. Mr. Rivers, I need to apologize. This happened on my watch. I should have better training protocols. I should have caught the culture issues before they... Tom? Jordan looked up at the station director. You're not fired either, but you're going to implement mandatory bias training for every employee at this airport. Every gate agent, every flight attendant, every manager. And you're going to do it within 90 days, or you will be looking for a new job. Clear? Tom nodded vigorously. Crystal clear, sir. I'll have a proposal on your desk Monday morning. Good. Now get off my plane. We have a schedule to keep. Tom practically ran down the jet bridge. Diane Patterson followed, tablet in hand, already typing up incident reports and termination paperwork. The police officers gave Jordan respectful nods and departed. Carlos lingered for a moment, looking like he wanted to say something else, then thought better of it and left. The aircraft door closed with a solid thunk. Jordan pulled out his phone. The personal one, not the executive device. He had messages waiting. 12 from Elizabeth, 6 from board members, 3 from Sophie, each one more concerned than the last because he always texted her when he landed, and she was tracking his flight on an app. He opened Sophie's messages first. Dad, are you okay? Your flight shows delayed. Dad, seriously, are you all right? The delay is like an hour now. Dad, Grandma showed me a video. You're on Twitter. What is happening? Jordan smiled and typed back. I'm fine, Bug. Long story. Home in 2 hours. Pizza and movies still on. Love you. 3 dots appeared immediately, then, you're trending on Twitter, #JusticeForHoodie. Grandma says you're a hero. I think you're just Dad. Love you too. See you soon. Jordan closed his eyes and let himself feel the exhaustion catching up. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the crash. He just destroyed 2 careers, possibly a third. He'd weaponized his wealth and power in ways that made him uncomfortable, even as he knew they were necessary. Rachel's voice echoed in his memory. The most dangerous thing about power is how good it feels to use it. Promise me you'll always ask if you're being just or if you're being cruel. Jordan opened his eyes and looked around the cabin. Sarah Bennett in 2B was still recording, but when she caught his eye, she lowered her phone. Mr. Rivers, I'm posting this everywhere. What you did today, what they did to you, people need to see it. Thank you. Jordan's voice came out tired. But I didn't do this for publicity. I did it because it was right. Sarah's expression softened. I know. That's why it matters. A new flight attendant boarded 20 minutes later. Young woman, maybe 25, nervous energy radiating off her in waves. Her name tag read Michelle Chang. She'd clearly been briefed because she approached Jordan with something approaching awe. Mr. Rivers, I'm Michelle. I'll be serving first class today. Is there anything I can get you? Jordan looked at her. Asian American, probably second generation based on the lack of accent. probably terrified she'd say the wrong thing to the CEO who'd just fired someone for saying the wrong thing. Just water, Michelle, and relax. You're doing fine. She smiled, relief visible. Thank you, sir. And, sir, what you did today? My parents are immigrants. My mom worked as a housekeeper for 20 years. People treated her like she was invisible, like she didn't matter. So thank you for seeing people. Jordan felt something tighten in his chest. Your mom sounds like someone who understands the value of hard work. She does. She's retiring next month. Finally. Good for her. She earned it. Michelle nodded and moved to the galley to prepare the cabin for departure. Captain Reynolds's voice came over the PA, smooth and professional, explaining the delay, apologizing, promising a smooth flight. He didn't mention the specifics, just an administrative matter that has been resolved. The engines spooled up. The aircraft pushed back from the gate. Jordan watched through the window as the jet bridge retracted, as the ground crew gave their signals, as Seattle fell away beneath them. His phone buzzed. Elizabeth. You executed Protocol Black. I assume there's a story? Jordan typed back. Long one. Call you when I land. How's the stock? 3 dots, then. Up 4% on unusual volume. Someone's buying aggressively. Also, Fontaine Global is down 11% after hours. Word is spreading about the denied loan. Media is calling for comment. Jordan frowned. No comment until I brief the board. And find out who's buying our stock. I want to know by morning. On it. Also, you're viral. 8 million views across TikTok and Twitter combined. The PR team wants to issue a statement. Tell them to wait. I'll review any statement personally. No canned corporate apology. This isn't a PR crisis. It's accountability. Understood. See you tomorrow. Jordan pocketed the phone and leaned back. The cabin had settled into the familiar rhythm of a flight in progress. Drinks being served, laptops opening, the hum of conversation mixing with engine noise. Sarah Bennett leaned across the aisle. Mr. Rivers, can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you just tell them who you were right away? You could have avoided all of this. Jordan considered the question. Because if I'd told them, they would have treated me differently. Not because I deserved it, but because I had power. I wanted to see how they treated people who didn't. And now I know. Sarah nodded slowly. My video is at 2 million views. People are angry. They're calling for boycotts, investigations, lawsuits. This is going to be everywhere by tomorrow. I know. Are you worried? Jordan thought about Rachel, about Sophie, about the kids in foster care who looked like him and wore hoodies because they were cheap and comfortable, and nobody judged you for wearing the same clothes twice in a row when you only had 3 shirts. No, he said. I'm not worried. I'm hopeful. Because maybe, just maybe, some people will think twice before they judge someone based on appearance. Maybe some employees will remember that every passenger deserves respect. Maybe some executives will realize that culture matters more than quarterly earnings. Sarah smiled. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? The flight attendant call button chimed from a few rows back. Michelle hurried down the aisle. Jordan closed his eyes and let the white noise of the aircraft wash over him. 90 minutes to San Francisco. 2 hours to Sophie and pizza, and pretending to be surprised when she picked the same Pixar movie that made him cry every single time. Flight 447 touched down at San Francisco International at 3:47 p.m., 13 minutes ahead of schedule despite the hour delay at SeaTac. Jordan had spent most of the flight with his eyes closed, but sleep never came. His mind ran through scenarios, consequences, chess moves 3 steps ahead. Derek Fontaine wouldn't take this lying down. Men like that never did. They had lawyers on speed dial and pride that demanded retaliation. The aircraft taxied to the gate. Jordan gathered his bag, nodded thanks to Michelle, who still looked at him like he might disappear if she blinked, and stepped into the jet bridge. The familiar smell of SFO hit him. Coffee, cleaning solution, the particular staleness of recycled airport air that tasted the same in every terminal across America. His phone came alive with notifications the moment he cleared the door. Texts, emails, missed calls stacking up like planes in a holding pattern. Jordan ignored them all and pulled up the car service app. Black SUV waiting at arrivals. 15 minutes. Then he opened his messages to Sophie. Landing now. Be home in 40 minutes. Order the pizza. Extra pepperoni, light on the olives like you like it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Dad, you have 12 million views. Kids at school are texting me. This is wild. Jordan smiled despite the exhaustion pressing down on his shoulders. Just another Thursday, bug. See you soon. He made it halfway through the terminal before the first reporter spotted him. Young woman, mid-20s, phone already recording as she jogged to intercept. Mr. Rivers! Megan Chen, San Francisco Chronicle. Can you comment on the incident at SeaTac this morning? Social media is calling you a hero. Do you... Jordan kept walking. No comment at this time. Excuse me. 2 more reporters materialized from the Starbucks line. A camera crew from a local news station appeared near baggage claim. Jordan put his head down and moved faster, grateful for the hoodie that let him blend into the crowd if he just kept moving. His phone rang. Elizabeth. Tell me you're not watching the news. Her voice carried that particular blend of exasperation and concern she reserved for when Jordan did something simultaneously right and catastrophically complicated. I'm trying not to watch anything. I'm trying to get home to my daughter. Derek Fontaine hired Morrison and White. That's the firm that... I know who they are, Jordan cut her off. Morrison and White handled corporate warfare for Fortune 500 companies. Their reputation was built on scorched earth litigation and media manipulation. Let me guess. He's filing suit for defamation, tortious interference, abuse of power? All 3, plus wrongful ban from commercial service and emotional distress. He's asking for $200 million in damages. His lawyer already released a statement calling you a mentally unstable individual exercising unchecked power to settle personal grudges. They mentioned Rachel. Jordan stopped walking. Around him, travelers flowed past like water around a stone. They brought up my wife? Elizabeth's voice went cold. The statement says, and I quote, Mr. Rivers has a documented history of mental health struggles following a personal tragedy 3 years ago. His erratic behavior today suggests he is unfit to operate a major airline and poses a danger to passenger safety. The terminal noise faded to white static. Jordan's hand tightened on the phone until the case creaked. They'd gone after Rachel. Used her death as ammunition. Weaponized grief to paint him as unstable. Jordan? Elizabeth's voice pulled him back. Are you there? I'm here. His voice came out flat, emotionless, the tone he used when rage ran so deep that showing it would crack the foundation. Get our legal team on the phone. I want a defamation countersuit filed by end of business tomorrow. And Elizabeth? I want discovery. Full discovery. Every email Derek sent in the past 6 months. Every financial statement. Every shell company transaction. If he's going to make this personal, we're going to make it thorough. Already drafting it. But Jordan, there's something else. The mystery investor? The one buying Skyward stock? We traced the shell company. It's registered in Delaware, but the beneficial owner is Derek Fontaine, Jordan finished. He's been trying to force a hostile takeover. Was trying, past tense. He dumped his entire position 30 minutes ago. Took a $12 million loss. Our stock is up 18% on the day because everyone thinks we're undervalued and about to be acquired. He's underwater on every margin call he has. Jordan started walking again, processing. He needed that Rivers Capital loan to cover his positions. Without it, he's forced to liquidate. The Western Cascade deal collapses. His stock price tanks. And he's going to lose everything trying to sue me for doing exactly what he was planning to do to Skyward. Karma's efficient when it wants to be. Elizabeth's voice carried grim satisfaction. There's more. 3 board members called. They want an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Richard Blake, Victoria Marsh, and Arnold Chen. The same 3 who opposed your acquisition 6 months ago. Jordan pushed through the automatic doors into the pickup area. The California sun hit him like a spotlight. Let me guess, they're concerned about the PR exposure, worried about my fitness to lead. Blake used the exact phrase, crisis of leadership. They're calling for a vote. 4 out of 7 board members can force you into a 90-day review period. You'd keep your shares, but lose operational control. The SUV pulled up to the curb. Jordan climbed in, gave the driver Sophie's address, and settled into the leather seat. Blake, Marsh, and Chen. That's 3. They need 4. Who are they targeting? James Patterson and Karen Rodriguez. Patterson's been quiet. Rodriguez is union rep. She's getting pressure from the flight attendants union to condemn the Torres termination. If either one flips, you're out. Jordan closed his eyes. 14 hours ago, he'd been planning a quiet undercover flight to assess company culture. Now he was fighting to keep control of his own airline, while Derek Fontaine weaponized grief and board members circled like sharks tasting blood in the water. Set the meeting for 9 a.m. My office. I'll handle Patterson and Rodriguez. Jordan, if you lose this vote, I won't lose. His voice carried certainty he didn't entirely feel. Because I'm right. And sometimes, that still matters. Elizabeth was quiet for a moment. Rachel would be proud of you. I hope you know that. The words landed heavy. Jordan felt them settle in his chest next to the exhaustion and the anger and the grief that never really left, just learned to coexist with everything else. Thanks, Elizabeth. I'll see you tomorrow. The drive to Sophie's school took 22 minutes through San Francisco traffic. Jordan used the time to scroll through the videos Sarah Bennett and others had posted. 8 million views had become 15 million. The hashtags had evolved. Hashtag Justice for Hoodie. Hashtag Skyward Accountability. Hashtag CEO in a Hoodie. Comments ranged from supportive to critical to insane. This is what real leadership looks like. He abused his power to bully employees. He's no hero. About time someone held airlines accountable for discrimination. He destroyed people's lives over a CAAT. That's psychotic. Jordan stopped reading. The internet would think what it wanted. He couldn't control that. He could only control what came next. Sophie's school was a private academy in Pacific Heights, the kind of place where tuition cost more than most people's annual salary. Jordan had struggled with the decision to send her there, worried about privilege, about bubble-wrapped childhood, about losing touch with the reality he'd grown up in. But the school had the best grief counseling program in the city, and after Rachel died, that mattered more than ideology. She was waiting on the front steps, backpack slung over one shoulder, phone in hand, surrounded by 3 other girls who were clearly interrogating her about her suddenly famous father. Sophie saw the SUV and broke away, jogging over with the unself-conscious energy of 11-year-old momentum. Jordan opened the door, and she launched herself into the seat, wrapping her arms around him in a hug that squeezed harder than necessary. "Dad, you're like internet famous. It's so weird."
Katie showed me TikTok, and you're in like 50 different videos, and people are doing reaction videos and everything. Jordan hugged her back, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo and the particular kid smell of schools and sunshine. "How was your day, Bug?" Sophie pulled back, eyes bright. "My day was fine. Tell me about your day. You got kicked off a plane, your own plane. That's insane." "It's complicated." "I'm 11, not stupid. Explain it." Jordan looked at his daughter. She had Rachel's eyes, dark brown, intelligent, missing nothing. She'd been 8 when her mother died, old enough to understand death, but young enough to believe it might be reversible if she just wished hard enough. 3 years later, she was growing into someone who asked hard questions and demanded real answers. "Some people at the airline treated me badly because of how I looked," Jordan said carefully. "They made assumptions, so I had to make some difficult decisions about accountability." Sophie processed this. "Did you fire them because they were mean to you? Because that seems kind of..." She searched for the word. "Harsh?" "I fired them because they had a history of treating lots of people badly. 52 complaints against one employee that were ignored. Today wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern." "But you're the boss. You could have just told them who you were." Jordan smiled. Rachel's daughter, asking the same question Sarah Bennett had asked at 30,000 feet. If I'd told them, they would have changed how they acted. I needed to see how they treated people who didn't have power. Now I know. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mom would have said something about how the clothes don't make the person. She was always saying stuff like that." "She was right." "I know. She was right about most things." Sophie's voice went softer. "I miss her." "Me too, Bug. Every day." They sat in comfortable silence as the SUV navigated through Russian Hill toward Jordan's condo in Nob Hill. The city passed by outside, Victorian houses painted in pastels, boutique shops with window displays that cost more than the inventory, tourists walking steep hills and taking photos of cable cars. Sophie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. "Grandma wants to know if you're okay. She saw the video of that man yelling at you. She's really mad." Jordan pulled out his own phone and texted Rachel's mother. "I'm fine, Margaret. Home with Sophie now. I'll call you tonight." The response came immediately. "That man was horrible. Rachel would have punched him. I'm glad you kept your composure. Love to both of you." Jordan smiled. Margaret was 72, fierce as a wolverine, and had zero patience for injustice. She'd raised Rachel to speak truth to power, and Rachel had raised Sophie the same way. The chain continued. They picked up pizza from Tony's on Polk Street. Extra pepperoni, light olives, extra cheese. Sophie insisted on garlic knots too because, "You had a hard day, Dad. You deserve carbs." Back at the condo, they settled onto the couch, pizza box open on the coffee table, Sophie queuing up her movie selection. "Coco or Up?" she asked. "Either one's going to make me cry, so pick your favorite." She grinned. "Up it is." Halfway through the movie, during the wordless montage that destroyed everyone who had a soul, Jordan's phone rang. He'd silenced it, but Sophie glanced over and saw the name on the screen. "It says Senator Blake. That sounds important." Jordan declined the call. "It can wait."
Dad. Sophie. She gave him the look, the one that said she inherited Rachel's ability to see through nonsense. If it's about work, you should answer. I can pause the movie. Jordan sighed and picked up the phone, stepped into the kitchen where Sophie couldn't hear, called Blake back.
Senator. Jordan kept his voice neutral. Richard Blake had been a state senator for 12 years before retiring into corporate board positions and consulting fees. He had connections, influence, and an ego that required constant feeding. Jordan, we need to talk about today's incident. Blake's voice carried that smooth political timbre, the kind that could make threats sound like friendly advice. The board is concerned, very concerned. This kind of publicity. The board is concerned that I held employees accountable for discrimination? The board is concerned that you exercised unilateral authority in a public forum without consultation, creating massive PR exposure and potential legal liability. Derek Fontaine's lawsuit alone could. Derek Fontaine assaulted me on video witnessed by 300 people. His lawsuit is theater. Blake's voice hardened. Nevertheless, the optics are problematic. A black CEO publicly humiliating employees, banning a white customer, weaponizing corporate power to settle personal grievances. Jordan's hand tightened on the phone. Careful, Senator. You're walking a very thin line. I'm being pragmatic. The market doesn't care about your principles. It cares about stability. And right now, you look unstable, erratic. There are whispers about your mental health, about your fitness to lead. Whispers you're helping spread? Jordan let the accusation hang. Silence. Then Blake cleared his throat. I'm calling as a courtesy. There will be an emergency board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. There will be a motion to place you on administrative leave pending psychological evaluation and leadership review. I suggest you prepare a robust defense. How many votes do you have? Enough. Patterson's on the fence. Rodriguez is getting union pressure. You're looking at 4-3, Jordan. Maybe 5-2. You could make this easier on everyone by stepping aside voluntarily. Keep your shares, collect your dividends. Let professional management stabilize the company. Jordan walked to the window. Below, the city lights spread out like a circuit board, connections and nodes and power flowing through invisible channels. The vote is tomorrow? 9 a.m., like I said. Then I'll see you at 9. Jordan ended the call. He stood at the window for a long moment, watching the city breathe. Behind him, he could hear the movie playing. Sophie probably crying at the part where Carl reads Ellie's adventure book and discovers her message about the life they built together being the real adventure. Rachel's voice in his memory, clear as if she were standing next to him. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. The question is whether you're willing to pay. Jordan returned to the couch. Sophie looked up, eyes wet from the movie, and made space for him. He settled in, and she leaned against his shoulder. Everything okay? She asked. It will be. They finished the movie. Sophie fell asleep around 9:30, still half sprawled on the couch, pizza grease on her fingers and determination on her face, even in sleep. Jordan carried her to her bedroom, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Love you, Bug, he whispered. She mumbled something incoherent and rolled over, clutching the stuffed elephant Rachel had given her for her 6th birthday. Jordan's phone buzzed as he closed Sophie's door. Elizabeth again. Patterson just called me. He's voting to keep you. Says what you did took guts, and the airline needs that. Rodriguez is still uncertain. Union pressure is intense. But Jordan, there's something else. What now? Rebecca Torres, the flight attendant you fired, she went to the press, gave an interview to CNN. It's airing in 10 minutes. I'm sending you the link. Jordan pulled up the live stream on his tablet. The segment opened with B-roll footage of skyward planes, then cut to Rebecca sitting in what looked like a modest apartment, eyes red from crying, tissue in her hand. The interviewer, a professionally sympathetic woman in her 40s, leaned forward. Miss Torres, you've worked for Skyward Airlines for 14 years. Tell us what happened today. Rebecca's voice shook. I was just doing my job. Following protocol. Mr. Fontaine is a Platinum Elite member. The system showed a double booking. I had to make a decision. I chose to accommodate our most loyal customer. But Mr. Rivers says you profiled him based on his appearance. Rebecca's tears flowed freely now. I didn't see a black man. I saw a passenger who appeared to be traveling on a promotional ticket. The code on his boarding pass indicated that. I had no way of knowing he was the owner. How could I? He was dressed like... She stopped herself. Dressed like what, Miss Torres? Like a regular person. Not like a CEO. I mean, I can't read minds. I can't know who everyone is just by looking at them. The interviewer's expression showed practiced skepticism. But there were 52 complaints filed against you in the past year for similar incidents. Passengers claiming you treated them differently based on race or appearance. Were all of those misunderstandings too? Rebecca's face hardened. Those complaints were investigated and dismissed. I was never disciplined, never written up. My performance reviews were always positive. And then one incident, one mistake, and Mr. Rivers destroys my career? I have 2 children. I'm a single mother. He didn't just fire me, he blacklisted me from the entire industry. How is that justice? That's revenge. Jordan watched the interview unfold. Rebecca was good, sympathetic. The wronged employee versus the billionaire bully. The single mother versus unchecked corporate power. By tomorrow morning, half the internet would be calling for his head. The segment ended with the interviewer's voiceover. Questions of power, accountability, and whether Jordan Rivers' actions represent justice or overreach. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops. Jordan's phone immediately lit up with messages. Board members, PR team, friends asking if he'd seen it. He ignored them all except one from Elizabeth. This complicates things. Rodriguez might flip. Can you counter this somehow? Jordan thought about it. He could go on television, defend himself, explain the documented history of complaints. He could release the personnel files, show the pattern of behavior. He could fight fire with fire. But that meant dragging Rebecca through the mud publicly, showing the world every complaint, every incident, every failure, destroying her completely instead of just firing her. Rachel's voice again. The easiest thing in the world is to use power to crush people. The hardest thing is to use it wisely. Jordan typed back. Let it play out. Truth has a way of surfacing. He didn't sleep that night. Spent hours reviewing board proposals, financial statements, legal briefs, preparing for a battle that shouldn't exist but did, because power made people nervous and change made them defensive. At 6 a.m., he went for a run through San Francisco's empty streets. The city waking up, delivery trucks rumbling, homeless people stirring under blankets, early commuters grabbing coffee. The world continuing regardless of corporate drama and internet outrage. By 8:30, Jordan was showered, dressed in a suit for the first time in weeks, and standing in the lobby of Skyward's headquarters. The building was 30 stories of glass and steel in the financial district, purchased during the acquisition specifically because the previous headquarters had been a depressing warren of cubicles that made everyone miserable. Elizabeth met him at the elevator. Rodriguez called. She's voting with you. Says the union reviewed the Torres file and can't defend the termination in good faith. You have 4 votes. You're safe. Jordan felt something unclench in his chest. Blake doesn't know yet? Not unless Rodriguez told him. Want to watch him find out in real time? They rode the elevator to the 30th floor. The boardroom occupied the northeast corner, views of the Bay Bridge and the water beyond. 7 chairs around an oblong table, 7 votes that would determine whether Jordan kept control of the company he'd built his second fortune buying. 5 board members were already seated. Richard Blake at the far end, silver hair perfectly styled, expression radiating confidence. Victoria Marsh next to him, venture capitalist in her 50s who viewed everything through ROI calculations. Arnold Chen beside her, hedge fund manager who'd made his money shorting failing companies. On Jordan's side, Elizabeth in her capacity as board member and CFO. James Patterson, retired airline executive with 30 years experience, the only board member who actually understood aviation. The door opened and Karen Rodriguez walked in. Union representative, 53 years old, career built fighting for worker rights. She'd opposed Jordan's acquisition initially, worried about jobs and benefits. But she was fair. Jordan respected that. Karen took her seat, looked directly at Blake. Before we start, I want to state for the record that I've reviewed all materials related to yesterday's incident. I've consulted with union leadership, and I'm prepared to vote. Blake's confident expression faltered slightly. We appreciate your diligence, Karen. Shall we begin with... I'm voting to retain Mr. Rivers as CEO with full operational authority, Karen continued as if Blake hadn't spoken. The Torres termination was justified. The union reviewed her file. 52 complaints, multiple witnesses, documented pattern of bias. We can't defend that. We won't defend that. Blake's face went red. This is premature. We haven't even heard. I've heard enough. Karen's voice cut clean. Mr. Rivers did what management should have done years ago. He held someone accountable. That's leadership. Victoria Marsh leaned forward. Karen, the PR exposure alone is manageable, Elizabeth interjected. Stock is up 21% week over week. Customer bookings increased 40% yesterday. Job applications are up 500%. The market is telling us something. Maybe we should listen. Arnold Chen shook his head. The Fontaine lawsuit will fail, Jordan spoke for the first time. His voice filled the room with quiet authority. Derek Fontaine assaulted me on video. He verbally abused staff. He has no case. His lawyers know it. This is theater to cover the fact that his company is collapsing because I denied a loan he needed to stay solvent. Blake stood up. You weaponized your personal wealth to destroy a man's business over a personal slight. That's abuse of power. That's exactly why this board needs to exercise oversight. Jordan stood too, matched Blake's gaze across the table. I denied a loan to a company that was attempting a hostile takeover of this airline. That's sound business judgment. The fact that Derek Fontaine personally insulted me is irrelevant to the financial decision. Convenient that those two things aligned, Blake shot back. Convenient that 3 board members calling for my removal, you, Victoria, and Arnold, all own significant positions in Fontaine Global. Convenient that you'd benefit from Derek's takeover attempt succeeding. Should we talk about conflicts of interest, Senator? Because I'm happy to go there. The room went silent. Blake's face cycled through emotions before settling on barely controlled rage. Are you accusing me of... I'm observing facts. Jordan's tone stayed level. You own 50,000 shares of Fontaine Global. Victoria owns 30,000. Arnold owns 20,000. I filed the disclosure report with the SEC 2 hours ago, documenting the conflict. You're welcome to recuse yourselves from this vote if you'd like. Victoria Marsh stood up. This is outrageous. You can't just... I can. I did. And unless you have 4 votes to remove me, this meeting is over. James Patterson leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing at his lips. I move to table the removal discussion indefinitely and affirm Jordan Rivers as CEO with full operational authority. Karen Rodriguez raised her hand. Seconded. All in favor? Elizabeth called the vote. 4 hands went up. Jordan, Elizabeth, James, Karen. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Blake, Victoria, and Arnold sat frozen. Their carefully orchestrated coup had collapsed in under 10 minutes. Blake gathered his papers with shaking hands. This isn't over.
Jordan walked to the window, looked out at the city. Yes, it is. The 3 of you are welcome to resign from the board if you feel you can't execute your fiduciary duties. Otherwise, I expect your full support going forward. They left without another word. The door closed behind them with a solid click. Elizabeth exhaled. Well, that was efficient. They overplayed their hand, Jordan said. Happens when people get desperate. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Jordan almost declined, then reconsidered. Jordan Rivers. Mr. Rivers, this is Agent Sarah Martinez with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. We need to speak with you about Derek Fontaine. Jordan's attention sharpened. I'm listening. We've been investigating Mr. Fontaine for securities fraud related to market manipulation and insider trading. Your denial of his loan application accelerated his margin calls and forced him to liquidate positions, which triggered our monitoring systems.
We'd like to ask you some questions about your business relationship with him and Fontaine Global. Jordan looked at Elizabeth, who was watching him with raised eyebrows. Agent Martinez, I'm happy to cooperate. When would you like to meet? How's tomorrow morning? 10 a.m. at our San Francisco field office? I'll be there. Jordan ended the call. Elizabeth was already pulling up news feeds on her tablet. Derek Fontaine is about to have a very bad week. He earned it. Jordan's voice carried no satisfaction, just recognition of cause and effect. What's the latest on Rebecca Torres? Elizabeth scrolled. Her CNN interview is getting mixed reaction. Some sympathy, but lots of people pointing out the 52 complaints. Someone leaked portions of her personnel file, not from us, showing the pattern. The narrative is shifting. Jordan nodded. And Carlos? Reports to baggage handling tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. He called to say thank you.
Said he deserves the demotion and wants to earn his way back. Good. That's growth. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, calls, interviews with internal investigators documenting the incident for legal purposes. By 6 p.m., Jordan was exhausted. He drove home through Friday traffic, picked up Sophie from her grandmother's house, and made it back to the condo by 7:30. Sophie had homework. Jordan ordered Chinese food and sat at the kitchen counter while she worked through math problems, periodically asking for help with fractions that he'd forgotten how to explain years ago.
Dad,
Sophie said during a break between problems.
kids at school are saying different things about what you did. Some think you're cool, some think you're mean. What do you think?
Jordan considered the question. I think I did what needed to be done. But whether it was cool or mean isn't really the point. The point is whether it was right.
Was it?
I think so.
But that's something you'll have to decide for yourself when you're older and you understand all the complexity. Sophie wrinkled her nose. That's a very parent answer. I'm a very parent person. She giggled, then went back to fractions. Jordan's phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, then saw the preview. Mr. Rivers, this is Sarah Bennett, the passenger from 2B. I wanted you to know my video has 40 million views. People needed to see what happened. Thank you for standing up. The world needs more of that. Jordan typed back. Thank you for recording. Truth matters. 3 dots appeared, then, my mom was a housekeeper in New York for 30 years. She knows what it's like to be invisible. She cried watching the video, in a good way. You made her feel seen. Jordan stared at the message for a long time, thought about all the people who worked jobs where they were invisible, ignored, treated as less than because of their clothes or their accent or their skin. Thought about Rachel, who'd spent her career as a public defender, representing people the system had written off. Tell your mom she's seen. Tell her she matters. And thank you for sharing this. 6 months passed in a rhythm of transformation and consequence. Skyward Airlines implemented mandatory bias training across all 37,000 employees. Customer satisfaction scores climbed from 2.1 to 4.7 stars. The company turned its first quarterly profit in 6 years, $62 million that Jordan plowed back into staff bonuses and new aircraft. Carlos Rodriguez spent his 6 months loading baggage, learning the weight of work that kept airlines running while managers made decisions from offices. On his last day in baggage handling, Jordan promoted him to Director of Ground Operations. Carlos rewrote every protocol that had failed that day in Seattle, building systems that prioritized fairness over status. Rebecca Torres struggled. Blacklisted from aviation, she worked retail jobs that barely covered rent. Her ex-husband filed for full custody, citing financial instability. The internet moved on to new outrage, new heroes, new villains. She was forgotten, except by the few who'd experienced similar consequences and saw themselves in her story. Derek Fontaine's world collapsed in spectacular fashion. The FBI investigation led to indictments for securities fraud, wire fraud, and market manipulation. His wife filed for divorce, taking the kids and half of what little remained. Fontaine Global declared bankruptcy after missing margin calls worth $300 million. The Western Cascade deal evaporated, along with a $20 million deposit. In month 5, Derek was convicted on 8 counts. Federal judge sentenced him to 8 years in prison and $25 million in restitution to investors. His penthouse was foreclosed. His yacht was seized. His art collection was auctioned to cover debts. By month 6, Derek Fontaine sat in federal prison in upstate New York, mopping cafeteria floors in an orange jumpsuit, while inmates who recognized him from news coverage asked if he was the racist airplane guy who got owned by the black CEO in a hoodie. Jordan stood in his office on a Tuesday morning, 6 months to the day since the incident. Outside, San Francisco glittered under November sun. Elizabeth walked in with a Wall Street Journal tucked under her arm. You made the cover. She dropped it on his desk. The headline read, The Hoodie Revolution, How Jordan Rivers Changed Aviation. Below it, a photo of Jordan in the same charcoal gray hoodie, standing in front of a skyward aircraft, Sophie next to him, grinning at the camera. Jordan picked up the paper and skimmed the article. It was fair, balanced, critical in places and complimentary in others. The journalist had done actual research instead of recycling social media narratives. What do you think? Elizabeth asked. I think Rachel would have laughed at the headline. She hated revolutionary rhetoric. She would have been proud of what you built, though. Jordan looked at the photo. Sophie's hand in his, both of them wearing hoodies because they were comfortable and because clothes didn't define worth. I hope so. His phone rang, Sophie's school. Jordan answered immediately. Is everything okay? Mr. Rivers, this is Principal Morrison. Sophie's fine, but there was an incident at lunch. Another student made a comment about your situation, called her the daughter of the guy who ruins lives. Sophie defended you very passionately. No one was hurt, but we'd like you to come in for a conversation. Jordan checked his watch. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He found Sophie in the principal's office,
arms crossed, defiant expression on her face. The other kid, a boy, maybe 13, private school arrogance radiating off him, sat across from her with his parents.
Mr. Rivers, Principal Morrison began carefully, Sophie was involved in a verbal altercation.
He said you destroyed people's lives for no reason, Sophie interrupted. He said you were a bully with money. So I told him the truth. I told him you held people accountable for being racist and terrible, and if he didn't like it, maybe he should think about why he was defending racists.
The boy's mother gasped.
That is completely inappropriate. She called my son.
Accurate, Jordan finished. She called your son accurate. Because if he's defending Derek Fontaine or Rebecca Torres, he's defending people who earned every consequence they received. The father stood up. This is exactly the problem.
You think your money gives you the right to... My money gives me nothing.
Jordan's voice went quiet, final. My principles give me the obligation to stand up for what's right. And I'm teaching my daughter the same thing. If that makes her inappropriate for this school, we'll find another one. Principal Morrison raised her hands. Nobody's being expelled. But Sophie, you can't call other students names, even if you think you're right. Understand? Sophie nodded reluctantly.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Everyone back to class. In the car, Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then,
Dad, am I like you? The way I got mad?
Jordan glanced at her. You're like your mom. She never let anyone get away with injustice either, even when it was uncomfortable. Good, Sophie said firmly. I don't want to be the kind of person who stays quiet when things are wrong. Then you won't be. That evening, Jordan stood at his condo window while Sophie did homework at the kitchen table. The city lights spread below like stars fallen to earth. His phone buzzed with the day's final message, this one from Tom Webb in Seattle. Mr. Rivers, wanted to update you. Bias training complete across all Pacific Northwest stations. Complaint rates down 73%. Staff surveys show morale improvements. And I just hired 3 new gate managers from diverse backgrounds who are phenomenal. Thank you for the wake-up call. We needed it. Jordan typed back. Thank you for implementing real change. That's what matters. He set the phone down and watched the city breathe. Somewhere out there, people were being judged by their appearance. Somewhere, employees were making decisions based on bias they didn't recognize. Somewhere, power was being abused and justice was being denied. But somewhere else, someone was standing up. Someone was speaking truth. Someone was remembering that clothes don't make the person. Character does. And maybe, just maybe, one person in a hoodie had reminded the world that the most dangerous person in the room is often the one you overlook. Not because they're powerful, but because you assumed they weren't. Sophie looked up from her homework. Dad, when I grow up, can I run a company like you? Jordan smiled. You can do anything you want, Bug, as long as you remember what matters. What matters? How you treat people when you think nobody's watching. That's the real test. Sophie nodded seriously, went back to her homework. Jordan looked out at the city one more time. Rachel's voice in his memory, clear and certain. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything, but living with yourself afterwards? That's priceless. He pulled his hoodie tighter and went to help Sophie with her math.